iHeartRadio Broadway, driven by Mercedes-Benz.
Responsibility to this story. It's a very iconic legend, and the musical was an iconic musical in its time. And I was doing research and looking and finding all different sorts of different versions with different characters and different plot lines, and the through line through all of those is the love triangle, which I think is interesting, and I think it gives us permission to also rethink this story for our time in the way that when they told it, back in the 60s, I think is when the musical came out, and then all the time it's been told before, to really make it relevant to the audience of that time.
I didn't know much about it. I knew of the songs, but I didn't know much about it outside of that. And then when I got the call that I was doing it, I sort of made a conscious decision to stay away from the iconic performances associated with it. But coming at it with fresh eyes, I'm grateful for, because Sorkin has created such a fresh take on it that I think in coming at it without any expectation, I'm able to just do what Sorkin wants.
It's not a different color; it's just a different shade of the same color. It is a new script. It feels like a new show more than it does a revival. And how I've been saying it is. And we talk about this in the show, is that, people tell stories. It's like one big game of telephone. So let's say we have a conversation, and 100 years from now, the story of this conversation is blown up and fantastical. That's basically what this version is. It's a distilled version of the fantasy into reality that then inspires perhaps the fantastical version of Camelot that you've seen before.
It's a story which is aspirational, inspirational. I enjoy writing romantically and idealistically, and it fit that. And we are living in a time where the sky is kind of gray, and it's nice to be reminded that humans have the ability to reach for the stars and to continue doing that. It's also, the show actually ends up being kind of a Valentine to the power of storytelling as well. That the greatest delivery system ever invented for an idea is a story. And that's how the show ends, with Arthur telling a little boy, just tell this story. So I was really happy to lean into that.
Something surprising about her would have to be just her level of wit and intellect and charm and humor. That is ultimately how she navigates her way through this very difficult period. I mean, they're trying to change the way the world thinks, right? And so I think unlike, not unlike us today, we are trying to do that as well. We're trying to create change and at the same time thrive and be a human and have a sense of humor about it. So I think that's where she sort of ties into who I am as a person and how we can relate to her.
How funny he is, and how sweet, and how earnest and nerdy. He just so deeply believes in the best of humanity in a world full of cynicism and detachment. And he's almost, in his earnestness, creating an act of resistance against it. And I just find that so beautiful and somewhat missing from our world today. And so I hope that when audiences come to see this, that they connect with that sense of earnest idealism.
His self-image, realizing that perhaps he's not someone who knows what love is and doesn't know how to accept love, therefore doesn't really know how to give love entirely, but something that he's learning and continues to learn, and that's something I'm loving exploring. The ideas of getting over the thought that I am an evil person, and so everything I'm doing comes from that place to not be an evil person. What if you started with the thought of, I'm a good person and I love myself? What would happen then? So exploring the dichotomy of those two things and the journey from one into the other has been a blast.
We've been through a lot as a country, and we've been through a lot in the last 3 years, and the idea that this group of people can come together and talk about, share this story has been incredible. And if you can do it with Andrew and Jordan and Pippa leading you, and you have somebody as great as Dakin Matthews, plus somebody like Taylor Trensch, plus an ensemble to dream of, it's pretty great.
The character became a lot more than a plot device. She represents a philosophy that would break Arthur's heart, and that you have to kind of fight against.
I think she fits in multiple ways, some of which I don't want to give away stuff, but I feel like there's 3 ways in which she fits in. I will speak about one. I'm not a sorceress in this, and Aaron already, that's out of the bag. Aaron already said there's no magic in this. I bring an element of science that has not been introduced before. And I think the deliciousness of how we viewed science, how we still view science, some people, as people that were crazy, witches. But science is actually a seeking of truth. So I think that I'm actually very excited about that aspect. A couple of the other aspects, I bring, Morgan Le Fay is an icon of sensuality, of the divine feminine. So that still stands. And I get to merge both the divine feminine, but also the science. The third element I don't want to give away. You'll have to come see.
It's tap dancing.
It is.
Huge tap number for Morgan.
Yeah, and whistling.
Yeah.
I can't believe it. I wake up every day and I pinch myself. This has been a dream for my entire life. And, to be making my Broadway debut here with these people, with this ensemble, with Bart and Aaron, leading the charge, it's been absolutely incredible. And as a disabled performer, I'm an amputee, it's such a pleasure and a privilege. And I never thought I would, be here. It's just incredible.
Yes, I play Merlyn, who is Arthur's mentor. In Aaron's version of it, he is not a magician, but just a man of a lot of experience and wisdom. He's a stern teacher, and he's trying to get Arthur to the place where he understands that he has certain obligations. He has to make certain choices. Sometimes they're hard choices, and he has to remain optimistic even when things don't go the way he wants it.
When I first moved to New York, I saw Bart's South Pacific, and you can better believe I didn't think that I'm probably going to be doing that. I just was in heaven and in awe, and every day I walk in and I see that I'm a part of it. I've had a long, great, fun career. I never saw stuff like this coming. That just feels so magical. Magic is a big word for this show for me, and every day I feel super grateful.
Sure. Yes, I play Mordred, Morgan's child. Mordred is a true little monster. He's a little butthead, and I think the audience is going to want to punch him in the face, and I welcome you to do it at any point in the middle of the show. Get up out of your seat and just give me a smack.
Oh, wow.
He's just a little monster. He feels like he's been given well, that's a bad word. I'm going to say the bad word. He's getting given the short end of the stick, and so he's come to take what he thinks is rightfully his, i.e. the kingdom, and he's going to really mess things up.
I think the three of us have had such a wonderful time working with each other, and we've had a lot of laughs, but we're also 3 people who very much care about this piece and care about how the characters are portrayed, especially because they're kind of complicated and controversial characters. So all of those little elements together make for a really lucky time.
Working with Bart Sher is a dream come true. I've known him for a very long time. My husband worked with Bart Sher, and I've just always admired his work. I've always just been in awe of the spectacle of his shows, and not only the macro and the pageantry and the visual aspect of his direction, but also just the humanity that he's able to instill in all of these pieces that he can carve out with his actors. And getting to work with him in the room is like such a dream. I mean, we're just, chipping away at this piece, and it feels very organic and authentic and easy.
He's so funny and so sweet and such a genius. And he produces the work without ego, if that makes sense. That it truly is best idea in the room wins. And when your leader comes at it in that way, it produces the best work from everyone. So he just allows space and creates space for everybody to do their best work, and for everybody to fail too. My favorite note that he's ever given me is like, I love when you did that, but never do it again.
I really think he's the best. It feels fun, always exploring. You're always in process, and that's what life is all about, just about the process.
This is my second time working with him. We did To Kill a Mockingbird together, which started about 3 years ago, even in the early workshops. It's great because Bart is a very collaborative and cooperative director who loves actors and respects their process, never imposes, always discovers what the play is about, what the scene is about, what the point of the scene, what the point of the play is. So it's a great collaborative experience, and at the end it's going to be right.
So I was sort of surprised at how sexy it is, how hot it is, and there's a lot of sensuality and a lot of humor, and that's been surprising to me.
How timely it is, how these issues that they were struggling with in the Middle Ages, are happening right now, and I just think that his ability to make it funny and romantic while dealing with that's a shock to me.
To do this show where this central character is fighting for justice and fairness and equality and wants to treat people with dignity and give them the respect they deserve and provide them with resources, that's exactly the kind of leader I think we all Americans would love to have. So I feel like it's happening at a perfect time, and we need somebody to break through the chaos and give us ideals to fight for.
Yes, and then because you'll see this in the show, but he's fighting for all these things, but he's bumping up against barrier after barrier after barrier. And for me, one of the big things is how do you reclaim and hold on to hope? Mm-hmm. That even though you want these things and they're not exactly happening, how do we keep going forward? So I feel like audiences are going to watch this, be completely immersed in the music and feel all the joy, but also ask themselves, who am I going to be when I leave the theater? What choices can I make to make a better world?
I think, the piece plays inside of all the questions we're asking now about leadership, about our own relationships, about who we are, and that there's no controlling what an audience absolutely feels at the end of something, but I do think they'll feel moved and very the thing you want theater to do, which is go home and feel a little bit more connected to the world.
This man on scale, a libelous display. Everyone breaks, everyone makes divine mistakes. The lasting mark of man.
iHeartRadio Broadway, driven by Mercedes-Benz.